Thank you, and thank you, Secretary Austin, Chairman Milley, and Undersecretary McCord for being here this morning and for your service. Secretary Austin, the Senate NATO Observer Group, which I co-chair with Senator Tillis, recently sent a letter to President Biden. And one of the things we raised in the letter was, in view of what's happening in Ukraine, whether we should have a more strategic and comprehensive approach toward the Black Sea region, which, as we're watching, Russia is freely using to attack Ukraine and has the potential to shut off that region. As we think about our future strategy, how are we factoring in efforts to address what's happening in the Black Sea region, particularly?
Well, thanks, Senator. This unlawful and unprovoked aggression by Putin has had the effect of changing the security architecture in the region for some time to come. And so what NATO is now doing is taking a look at what has changed and what NATO will need to do to make sure that we can continue to do what's necessary in protecting our NATO countries, defending our NATO countries. That work is just commenced. It's ongoing. I expect that we'll have a robust discussion as we go to the summit in June. But again, it's ongoing work. We recognize, however, that change has occurred, and that change needs to be accounted for.
Well, again, the Black Sea region is a particular vulnerability right now, given what's happening. And are we working with our allies in the region on what that strategy should look like?
Absolutely, Senator. And well prior to this, we were working with the countries in the region in terms of their capability and capacity and what they needed to do to evolve that. That'll all be a part of the ongoing discussion, but clearly they will have a voice in that discussion.
And as we look, as you pointed out, the architecture of Europe is going to be different because of this war, and it appears that we are right now looking at a much more robust presence in Europe. How do we think that's going to affect our long-term military posture in Europe?
I wouldn't care to speculate at this point, Senator. I would say that as we look at that posture, we're going to look at capability in all 5 warfighting domains, and we're going to look at capability across NATO. We do expect that it will change our footprint in terms of how much it changes the U.S. contribution. That's left to be seen, and whether or not it includes permanent basing forward, or additional rotational forces in and out of that the eastern flank, or a combination of both. These are things that have to be worked out. Again, we'll work with NATO on this, and to your point, it no doubt will be different going forward.
Chairman Milley, would you like to speculate?
I won't speculate, Senator. We're developing options for the Secretary and the President to consider on the future force posture in Europe to achieve the 2 fundamental purposes, which is to assure our allies and deter any adversary, specifically Russia. But right now, those are under development.
Well, I was pleased to see that the President's budget included $4.2 billion for the European Deterrence Initiative. But in view of what's happening in Ukraine, do we not think we're going to have to increase that request? I don't know if that's for Undersecretary McCord or for you, Mr. Secretary.
Well, that's certainly that's something that we'll look at. But let me take this opportunity to thank you for what you did in the past to provide us with that. That enabled us to very rapidly flow forces into theater. You saw us flow a brigade combat team from Georgia into Europe, fall in on pre-position equipment, and we're ready to go in a very short period of time. That, in addition to a number of other things that you helped us with, created some great capability. But to your point, I think we'll need more of that going forward. Exactly how much, unknown.
Thank you. I'm almost out of time, but I do want to raise an issue around PFAS because the 2022 NDAA and the omnibus budget bill contained funding for PFAS testing and remediation at DoD installations. And for those of us who have constituents who are affected by what's happened with PFAS exposure at military installations, it's nice to be able to say help is on the way. So are you committed to ensuring that all of the initiatives that are funded as part of both of those bills get out on time and as quickly as possible?
I am absolutely committed, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.